Hello, automating success followers. I'm super excited today. I'm actually doing this podcast from England. Ironically, Phil and I were just a room away, but in about a day here, I'm going to be back in the United States. Phil's going to continue on with his automation here in England, but I'm really excited to bring him on the show. He's going to have a whole bunch of knowledge for us. He's been doing this for decades now. And this is Sear with AMS Robotics. Phil, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in this automation industry?
Well, it's been around about 13 years now, all in all, since I set AMS Robotics up. And I fell into it by accident, really, on the basis that I designed and developed a golf mat called TrueStrike, which is a high-performing product that performs like natural turf. A lot of golf professionals and golf enthusiasts use it around the world in their golf simulators or just for genuine practice, because standard mats just do not deliver a performance like natural turf. So I was in a situation in northern Italy with a client, and I saw a prototype ball collector running around. And I thought to myself, well, goodness, if we manage to design and develop a wash and return system where this collector can come, drop balls off into a pit, and then we can take the balls out of that pit in some way, wash them, put them clean in the dispenser, maybe cut the grass as well with robots. Wow, save the site money. It's got to be a no-brainer for the future. It's got to be a no-brainer for the future. So there you go. That's how I got into it. And that was the start of it all.
All right. So that was a perfect kind of timeline, kind of shows kind of how you got into the industry. So we're going to come back to this TrueStrike mats here shortly. But when you saw that, did you instantly get started with the ball watch, or did you get started, did you go and find the system? How did you get started with Belrobotics then? Because you said you were in Italy. Was it the Belrobotics machine you saw, or what did you see out there?
Oh, absolutely. It was the Belrobotics machine I saw. And it was, as I say, it was a prototype. They didn't have a running model. And I was so enthusiastic about trying to put something together here that I contacted Belrobotics as soon as I got back to the UK and said to them, look, I'm in pretty much in touch with every driving range in the UK, virtually on a daily basis. Not all of them, of course, but anyway, one at a time. And I reckon there's an opportunity here to automate golf driving ranges in the UK and make a very successful business. So fundamentally, I said to them, I want to distribute your product in the UK, of which they did. A gentleman called Emmanuel was their CEO at the time. Great relationship with him. They hadn't sold any ball pickers at this stage. And I brought the system back. I brought the distribution back to the UK. We designed and developed a wash and return system. I sold 5 systems and 5 setups with 5 robot ball collectors and 5 mowers. And boy, that was a tough time, because that prototype ball collector just really wasn't the answer. It was great if you had clean balls, and it was great if you had an ideal situation. But as soon as you put them out in the driving range, start putting a lot of mud in there and start putting leaves and all manner of things, boy, no, that was a tough time. However, Belrobotics as a company, absolutely superb, with Emmanuel leading them. I raised the subject and said, this is crazy. We've got to redesign this thing. So we spent a great deal of time as AMS working with Belrobotics. They did the fundamental, they employed a contractor to fundamentally redesign the mechanics of it, with a great deal of input from AMS at the end of the day. My technical director, Sam Daybell, and myself, and got to the stage where we now have a product that fundamentally works. So Belrobotics stood behind their brand, stood behind their product, took the prototype machines out and replaced them with the new machine, free of charge. And AMS did exactly the same. We backed it up, and we converted those 5 customers who stayed by our side. We've lost 1 in the last 13 years. All those guys have reinvested and upgraded the systems as we've gone along, which is an exciting thing, and a huge amount of confidence in not just the product, but also in what AMS has delivered from a support perspective and the design of our systems. And over the course of the last 13 years to where we are now, Belrobotics have been bought out by a company called Yamabeco, who've invested a ton of money into the robots. So we've taken what you guys in America might not know about, the Sinclair C5, or you may have heard of this little electric car designed by a gentleman called Clive Sinclair 30 years ago. Basic technology, a bit like sending Apollo to the moon. You know, that technology in there was so, you know, basic, if you like. And that's what the robots ran on. Then Yamabeco came in, sensationalized the robots, brought them right up to speed. And now we've got what we are likened to the Tesla of the robot world, because the technology is right up to speed, even nowadays with GPS RTK. And what we've additionally done as AMS, we've developed our wash and return system on understanding where we had difficulties, understanding and listening to our clients on what improvement we can make and how we can develop the product. And we now have the Mark III series wash and return system, which is just, well, I'm involved in the design and development of it, so I'm bound to be good about it. But our engineers are spending some 50 to 60% less time on the road resolving issues, and our client base has easily quadrupled in the last 5 years. So spending less time for engineers, a larger client base, it's got to say something, I'd have said.
Well, absolutely. And you just gave me a whole lot to kind of undress and hit on here. So first thing I want to say, I like that you brought up that you have clientele that's reinvested and kind of up the ante with the new technology.
To be fair with you, Joe, you know, if someone buys a system off us and then we have the development of the RTK, or we have the later robots, everybody upgrades. Everybody upgrades.
Well, Phil, and this is not surprising, right? Because I've told people, I mean, how many people do you know that have a flip phone still? Everybody's running the new iPhone or the new Android, right? I mean, this. I've always felt like this segment is not that much different than the cellular cell phone segment, right? At the end of the day, we went from being tethered to a line and not being able to leave a desk to being able to be mobile with cellular, and then cell phones turned into little computers we could take around with us all over. Well, when you look at automation, it's kind of very similar. You know, people are trepidatious, and they always tell me they don't want to start until the best of the best is there. But the reality is, with technology, it's always evolving, and it takes the feedback of the consumer to make it better and make it fit better. So it is great to actually hear, since you guys are so far ahead of the United States, that opinion and vision I've had is showing up also true in England right now.
Well, to be fair with you, once the clients buy into it, and they say, look, I want to save money, I want to go carbon neutral, I don't want to use fossil fuels anymore, I want the presentation of my golf driving range facility to not be a mud pit out there, I want it to be grass all year round. They see what the robots do, and fundamentally they don't want to, there's no way they'd go back. You know, once you've dealt with the robots, what do you want to go back to? What, a kid spinning around in a big old picker, digging the ground up everywhere he goes? I don't think so. Once you've gone into it and you understand how it works, and you've gone through the learning curve, and your team are on board, there's no way back, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so I'm kind of fascinated, because your start is, you know, so much different than mine, right? Like I got started with Echo. I've been putting them on ramps, and I've been keeping my customers happy. And I have to tell my followers that as I've been out here, it's, you know, and I realize this in the United States, and honestly, it's one of the reasons I came out here to meet with Phil. I knew I could learn a lot from Phil and AMS, his whole team out here, because with every company, it's more than a person, right? There's a whole team of people. And the reality is to see that, you know, right now in America, I've been leaving so much of a solution out of the equation, which is your ball wash system, right? So, you know, how much has your ball wash system evolved? So, I mean, you saw the picker when you were in Italy, you said, right? So then that means you had to come back here, you had to you had to hit the ground running? Because it sounds like you knew you needed ball management right out of the gate. So tell me how that started. You know, how did that process go? How did you start designing that, and how many evolutions has that design been through from then till now?
Well, I'll be frank with you, Joe. Fundamentally, the system doesn't add up unless you have the full solution. There is little point in just having a robot going around to collecting balls, because you've got a guy waiting there for the robot to come back, drop them into a basket. He then has to go out to the basket, pull the basket out, take it to a washroom, wash it. Where's your labor saving? You've got a man involved. So likewise, you know, if it's you know, simply from the point of trying to save money, trying to save energy, you might as well do the whole thing. So I never went to the stage where we had just a ball collector. Never went there. It was a full system or not at all. And our original system was fundamentally a circular barrel, where we had an exit point at the bottom for the balls. The robot drove over the drop, dropped the balls in, and then the system would fire up. And what we would have in there is we'd have a motor that would rotate with an arm on the end in the center, which would agitate the balls, because fundamentally spherical objects stick together. You put them in a pile, ask them to go down through a single hole, they're not going unless you agitate them, because just the physics of the balls touching each other, they just won't move. So you have to agitate. If you put vacuum on the bottom as well, fantastic. So you're drawing the balls out through the bottom along the transport pipe. But the major flaw in the original system that we designed was the fact that if it goes in the top, it's got to go out the bottom. So that would relate to stones, sticks, leaves, whatever was going in there. So debris was a big problem for us, because you then had to go to the bottom of the pit, which is a real tricky thing, take off the pipe work, remove the blockage, and then put it back together again. So absolutely, it was a real issue to start with. So after a great deal of you know, just modeling and mucking about in the office, trying to think of ways in which we could agitate the balls effectively, I came up with a solution where I just had a V-shaped piece of cardboard with a hole in the middle of it. So an upside down roof, if you like. And then in that upside down roof, I put a bunch of balls. And then all I did, I had a stick with a triangular block on the end, and I just pushed the balls. And if you went backwards and forwards, you could get the balls to go over the hole and drop through the hole. So that was the principal design, and that's the part, the technical part that's patented and all those sort of good things, you know. So so that's evolved into now where we have a slider, and we have a space in that slider for 5 balls. So 5 balls can go in at a time. And as the slider moves, it presents the balls over the center hole. The balls drop through, but of course, this doesn't always stop blockaging. So what we've additionally done, we've added 4 stainless steel bars. I don't know whether you get a great deal of snooker. I know you get a lot of pool in America, Joe, but I don't know whether you get a lot of snooker. And with snooker, you'll see the corner pocket has 4 bars where the balls go in and roll around. Well, the reason why we've added that, the stainless steel bars, so as the balls go through, if there's loose debris, it drops straight through. So if there's grass, if there's anything there, so that doesn't actually enter the pipework now. So we eliminate blockages in the pipe. If you get a stone or something of that sort of nature, even though the ball picker's picked it up, it's probably not a perfect shape. If it is, there's a good chance it's going to go through all the way through the system and out the other end without blocking it. But if it's got a few sort of excretions and lumps and bumps, as it gets to the bottom, it blocks at the bottom of the pit. So your operator just goes and moves the balls, takes the obstruction out, discards it, system's running again without any lengthy clearances like we used to have in the past. And additionally, we also perforated the actual V-shaped trough itself on the side. So as the balls move around in there, any chunky bits of mud or dried mud, they rub against these edges, the mud drops off. And, you know, it was, you know, the additional designs that we've done to the system have just been got to the stage where even now we've got a self-clearing solution. So even if it's something, a stick does block across the hole, we've got an additional item in there that as the slider comes off, it moves it out of the way. So the system carries on running without any operator intervention. So yeah, no, we reckon we got a pretty good system now, to be fair with you. Our customers are happy. So I can't argue about that.
So yeah, well, and I mean, you left out a couple of things too. I mean, even when I was out here and I saw what you guys have, I heard from some of your technicians that you guys used to use some like electronic type of actuators. Now you've gone all to air because then that doesn't get affected by the outside environment, which I thought was a brilliant move on your guys' part. And then the other thing is the strategic positioning of the manhole covers to see actually, okay, if something does make it through, or if we get some bridging of balls, or let's say it vacuums in some moisture or water somehow, that it's easy to actually clear it through these access points, right? So, and that's all stuff that I don't think can be learned without having someone on the ground, not only running the system themselves, but designing it, and also being willing to say, okay, this wasn't the best way to do it. Let's try something even better, because that's how we innovate, right? And I can tell you what you guys did.
You can't, things aren't always apparent. It wasn't apparent that we didn't necessarily think, well, it's a round tub. We didn't necessarily think, obviously everything's got to go through. So is that going to create, I guess if, you do a lot of due diligence, you might come up, but kind of like, we needed to get a system out there. We needed to get this thing selling. We need to see what the customer's reaction was. And the reaction was great. And okay, now we've got some things we've got to resolve. Well, that's all about R&D, isn't it? So you put a bunch of R&D in, you come out with some ideas, and then you develop those ideas as you go forward. And coupled with the Belrobotics, or Echo products as they are now, both obviously just two brands of the same product, incorporating our system, we got a absolutely perfect system for driving ranges. It will save a low volume driving range. It will certainly create a far better outfield, because the robots are so light when they're operating, but it will save a small range, not a huge amount of money. They'll probably break even, but as soon as you get up to 1.5 million balls a year for a driving range, your cost of operation generally is 25% of your income. And when you're looking at that, then our savings generally are between 20 to 60% on the actual cost of operation. You also get the grass cut up to 5 times a week rather than once a week as used to be done. The balls don't have to be cleared whilst you're cutting the grass because they work into conjunction together, the robots. You've got a robot weighing no more than 84 kilos fully loaded. I don't know how many pounds it is. What's that? 150 pounds, 160 pounds, like someone walking out there. And so you're not destroying the outfield while you're doing it. And even the picker, it picks its picker wheel up when it reverse steers to turn, rather than you got your young lad on your big picker with your 5 gang. He turns around a corner, it tears the surface up and destroys the sward. I mean, what's there not to like about it, Joe? What's there not to like about it, mate?
Well, absolutely. And it's actually ironic hearing you hit on the point of the picker wheel picking itself up, because I tell people that that's the main reason that I believe our system is so much better for turf health than.
Oh God! I mean, you think about it with the big old 5 gang picker. As it turns, it's breaking up that sward. It's breaking up. So what you're having is a weaker surface. So when it rains, and it does rain, obviously, you start getting compaction from that heavy machine going over. No sward. You get a mud pit. So you then have a robot that's so light on the ground, no mechanical compaction, doesn't even tear the ground with it. By the time the grass has been cut 5 times a week during the season, you've got a lovely solid sward there. Then no hand picking in the winter. That's the target. No hand picking in the winter.
Yeah. So
labor charge.
Well, a couple other things I'd like to bring up and talk about, just to kind of describe the system as I saw it, so people listening can understand. So, talking about energy, one of the things that I was really impressed with first time I saw the system was when James took me around to show me the system. The robot was actually still out picking, and all James did was hit the charging arm, and it activated the system. which I thought was brilliant. I mean, these are things that people that are not into automation like we are yet, Phil, and it's why I'm breaking this down for them to understand necessarily what to think about, right? So you guys have figured out a way to tie into once the arm moves, the system turns on. So the system is not constantly running. It's running when the robot comes in and docks. The robot drops the golf balls. It runs. Is that something that you had to work with Bell on, or is that something that you were able to kind of see that they had once their arm moves? Tell me how you guys figured out how you could incorporate this.
It's quite a simple thing. No, we said to Bell, we want to put a relay in the docking station, so as when the robot comes on, it would trigger the relay. So they weren't adverse to that. There was power there. It just puts a wire pair in between our system and the charging arms. So it's a relatively easy solution. But the cute thing about it now, though, as we've evolved that on, the larger sites that do a great deal more balls, we can run 2 pickers on 1 drop pit. So when one picker comes up and it's dropping, if the next picker comes up at the same time, it gets a busy signal. Bell helped us with this, but the robot gets a busy signal. So the robot stops and waits. When picker 1 leaves the docking station, picker 2 fires up, jumps on the docking station and the drop pit, drops its balls, and then carries on working. So in other words, you've got, through 1 drop pit, you can run probably 30 to 35,000 balls a day. And so, and if you have a site that's doing 60, 70,000 balls, we installed 2 drop pits. So we've got some sites running, 3 to 4 ball pickers on each site.
Well, yeah, and so do we. Like, that's what we have at Ibis Club. That's one of the reasons I really liked your system, because I could see it tying in with our large golf courses in the United States.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The other thing I really liked about your system was, everybody's always talking about energy and how much, what the conversion of electric is to gas power. But one of the things that I've noticed when I go to these golf clubs is the amount of water wasted when they're hand washing the balls, because they just run at full steam or whatever. And it seems like your water is very metered. It's using the water when it needs it, not using it when it doesn't. Have you guys done anything to test and see the water differential, or is that something that?
No, absolutely, of course, yeah. No, our system, you can tune our system, so you can turn the water down, you can turn it up. We just need 1 bar of pressure at the ball pit. And you only use as much water as you need to clean the balls. That's the long and short of it. So if your balls aren't particularly dirty, don't use so much water. As the balls travel through the transport pipe, we introduce the water at the very beginning of the pipe. So we just trickle feed the water in there. So as it goes through the pipe, they pre-wash, if you like, if they're dirty. By the time they get to the wash unit, you can tune the wash unit. So you might only want the ball to do 1 rotation of the wash unit and exit, because they're relatively clean balls. But if they're very dirty, you can tune the ball wash, so it'll retain the ball in there for 2 or 3 rotations, giving it extra clean before it exits a ball wash. And then the balls will travel up through a water separator into the final receiver. When the system shuts down, the balls will drop into the dispenser, exactly where the facility wants them. The drains will open, so the drain on the wash unit will open and the drain on the water separator will open. So you're never washing the balls in dirty water. So your next load, it's fresh water, but probably only, 2 or 3 pints of water. Very, very low water usage for the system.
If you saw the water lines, people that are listening, tiny. It's like I'm pulling up the courses and they've got just regular standard garden hoses hooked up, and they're just turning the valve on and water's pouring out all over, and it's muddy.
Costs a lot of money. Costs a lot of money. And not only that, Joe, you've also got to consider that at the end of the day, if you use tumble washers, people fill tumble washers up with water and they tumble balls. So these balls are getting washed in dirty, sandy water. If the driving rain top dresses, there's going to be a lot of sand in there. It wears the balls down. It takes the skin off the ball. And then you get disgruntled guests because they're hitting what they seem as old tatty balls,
Yeah. Well, and actually, speaking of that, so by introducing water at the front end, that's pretty much acting like a lubricant, a little bit of a lubricant through the piping too, correct?
Absolutely. That's why we put it there. And if the balls are particularly dirty and you do need to use more water, You also have a solenoid on the wash unit, so you can actually add more water if required. So it's fully flexible, subject to the, it's going to be very different in Canada than it is going to be in Southern California, so, the product, the system will work in all environments at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is really an amazing system, Phil. And quite honestly, I'll kind of make this announcement while we're on the podcast. There's, first of all, I've got a lot of pictures of this. If you go to my TikTok at Automated Outdoor on TikTok, and talking about how he can, things are so changeable. One of the things I was so impressed with when I came out here to visit was the motor control box and the variability in the controls, because this is not just throw a vacuum on an end and throw some water in and it sucks golf balls through a pipe. This is really a piece of equipment that is fine tunable. Quite frankly, when I was an electrician, this is some state-of-the-art stuff that they're using. So it's a value. And go ahead.
I was just going to say is we've designed it so as, if you've got you could have a pipe 150 meters long. So what's that? I don't know, 150 meters, let's say 160 yards long. Yeah. And you can run the system. We recommend using as short a distance as possible because you'll use minimum energy. So you'll be able to control the vacuum pump to only draw enough current, pull enough air through to make sure the balls get through the system and into the final receiver. You don't have to go, they don't have to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. As long as they get to the final receiver and they're clean, that's all you want.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even down to stuff, I saw when I was out, you guys have some rubber padding with turf in there to dampen noise going into the receiver box. I mean, this system is very thought through, and it's why I'm really happy that AMS and AOS are working together on this to bring this solution, from England to the United States. So
yeah, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to working with you, Joe.
Yeah, no, this is very exciting. So, so we've got the ball wash, we have the automation. So now another big thing that I learned as I was here, that you guys seem way ahead of us when it comes to the system mowing, right? As I was here to do the install, I see pattern mowing. Everybody's kind of chomping at the bit, waiting for this in the United States. What's your opinion on the luck you guys have had with installing those systems here with AMS?
Well, I don't want to blow Belrobotics trumpet too much, but at the end of the day, Belrobotics in Yamabe, I have to tell you, GPS RTK without a doubt is the way forward. But you have to appreciate that sometimes you can't get a GPS RTK signal. So if you've got a tree coverage or whatever, so you have to install to the limitations of the technology at the end of the day. But the really exciting thing is now as far as installation is concerned, it's great. I mean, the largest mower we do is a 5-headed unit, and it'll manage up to 75,000 square meters. So sorry, you'll have to convert that, Joe. Let's say it's 17 acres. I guess that.
By the way, I do believe it's 16 to 17 acres.
16 to 17 acres. There you go. And it won't just do it a little bit like some competition, but it will do it 3 times a week. So it'll give you a totally professional cut in that whole area, which is, there's nothing else on the market that will get to anywhere near that. But the quality of the cut, dead straight lines, you're even getting striping. But the beauty about the kit the way it is now Yamabeco brought it through to the technology base, as you say, like, as I mentioned earlier, like a Tesla. All the development now, we got the hardware, all the development is software now. So what you'll see is where we have restrictions with the GPS RTK going under canopies, you mark my words, in the next couple of years, you'll find that they'll be able to go under canopies because they'll have a different kind of mapping system, which will enable them to remember where they are at particular times. This technology is rapidly moving. As we all know, it moves at a great pace. And so, anybody buying a GPS RTK unit now can expect that unit not only to be running for quite some time, but also as the software developments come in, so their machine can do more. And we're now in a position, which is overly exciting here for me in the UK, because next year we start installing on golf courses in a big way. We can manage a whole golf course with just five big Mo robots. What this means is that whereas obviously the sort of normal equipment a golf course would buy, we can cut the fairway and the first cut rough by next September fully automatically. That's going to save a golf club between 150 to 250,000 pounds a year. And when you're talking about that kind of saving, this is a no-brainer for a golf course, surely.
So you say next September? You think
we've got a GPS RTK comes out in April. The software gets released in April. But even though auto cut height adjust is already on the robots in some circumstances, from a beta testing point of view, it will be released in September. So all the golf clubs I'm going to be installing over the course of the next 12 months will, as that technology comes out, that software will go onto the robot, and then they'll be able to expand the capability of that robot. So that's what I mean by the development of the software. That's what's happening, and Yamabeco are completely, Yamabeco, Echo, and Belrobotics completely committed to make these robots, unbeatable at the end of the day.
Well, I guess I'm just trying to figure out when the next time I'm going to come out and see you is,
Anytime you like, my friend. Anytime you like, my brother.
So the yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty amazing. 5 robots can do an entire golf course, and this is one of the things that I've been speaking to for a long time in the United States. And sometimes I think people think I'm just like wound up on robotics, but this is why I love relationships like this, because it actually shows that it's not a dream. It's actually reality. The only thing in the United States holding some of this reality back, and I want to elaborate, you said there's nothing else in the market like it. I know people listening to this podcast would instantly say, well, there's Greensey and there's Sith and there's these bigger robots that are in the United States. But here's what I would challenge them to think about. They don't dock themselves. They don't charge themselves. They don't stay on site. So Americans, Phil, they're the people that I'm trying to talk to, they're still stuck into this belief of bigger is better. And they forget why everything got bigger, right? Labor rates went up, so we had to run bigger equipment to offset the extra time on the machines. With the automation that you're using out here, you don't need the size. And even when you think about it, 5 pieces of equipment stay on a golf course, it docks itself, cuts itself, it manages itself. The only thing the professional on the golf course now is doing is maintaining blades and making sure the travel paths to get each place stay clean. I mean, that's the way I see it, right? Am I right on that vision?
Oh yeah, you're right there. Obviously, you still, the greens will still need to be done by the greens team, but you've got to bear in mind the skill level of a greenkeeper in a golf club. These guys are studied. They know what they're talking. They know about grass. They're not mower jockeys. They're not just someone whose skill set is sitting on the mower. These guys need to, they're like doctors of the grass. I have a huge admiration for greenkeepers, a huge admiration. And to keep greens looking like that, it's amazing. If you can take the low-hanging fruit out of the equation, i.e. simply cutting grass, which is a very time-consuming thing, and you end up, because it's so time-consuming, you end up putting lower salary people on them. And so, I don't really want to get into that subject, but I mean, fundamentally, greenkeepers are essential in a golf course operation, and embracing the technology that we have now, which I'm seeing more and more greenkeepers do, I think is vital for the survival of a lot of these golf clubs, because, I mean, they can't afford to buy, all the fertilizers and all the individual things, it's just getting so expensive. So saving money on cutting has got to be a huge benefit for them.
Yeah, and we won't go too deep into it, like, especially because there's so much more we can talk about. But I will totally agree with you. I mean, the thing that people cease to think about or forget about is if there's trees or bushes on a golf course, they're constantly growing. They constantly need to be pruned back, trimmed back. People are beating the turf to death with their divots and all the stuff and the funguses and all the things that are just going to naturally occur. That's what the greenkeepers are really getting paid to do, and that's what they do. So yeah, that's not taking anybody's job. It's making there's less management going on when you have automation doing the work. So
let me just add one thing for you there, Joe. Something that we see over here in the Football Foundation over here in the UK. I believe you call it soccer over in America, but the Football Foundation over here supports the grassroots clubs to help them improve the quality of their pitches, because most of the pitch management of the pitch is done by volunteers. Volunteers is like a rarity, you know. It's a dying fraternity. If you can cut the grass automatically, that volunteer can get on with lots of other things that grassroots club, that small end club needs. And I think it must be the same in the States with American football and soccer, of course, because, you know, these guys love the game, and they put a lot of time and energy in to try and make sure they can put a team out.
Well, and with automation, with soccer, football, whatever sport you're looking at, in America, a lot of things are going to artificial turf because they can never keep the grass cut at the proper height to keep the ball rolling, the same consistency. I mean, I've heard horror stories of sports club managers where they go to have host a game. The officials come out and say the grass is too long, we're going to cancel the game. Well, that's pie in their face. It doesn't look good for them. So then they start looking for prices to put in artificial turf, and that's expensive as all heck. So yeah, I mean, the automatic mowing is huge. And you know, I didn't say it when we were talking, but you know, you and I were both going to be in the game of automatically washing golf balls together now, and I don't know that I would want to try to automatically wash golf balls if a range was not getting cut every day, because now I've got to deal with the one day a week they're going to cut the range, having all that grass on the golf balls. And that's something that, you know, I don't know if you've seen that or thought about that, or if it's never been a thing for you because you were in the ball right away. But
no, absolutely. You've got to look at grass debris. When they cut the grass once a week on a golf driving range, you know, the leaf is maybe an inch or two long, and so when they put it through their washer, they get so much debris, and all that grass is being just blown around. When you cut the grass frequently, like we do with the robots, the clippings are so small that it remulches back into the ground again and actually self-fertilizes the surface, which probably gets very little fertilization in a lot of facilities. You know, especially with the sports fields that you're talking about, and when you're talking about a 3G or an artificial, you're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds in $100,000 in a lot of cases. Whereas you could put a $30,000 robot on that piece of grass, and you've got the perfect surface all the time, because the grass, it keeps growing. Why spend the money on the other?
It's pulling a little nitrogen out. You're clipping that nitrogen, it decomposes, and it takes the same nitrogen again. It's not getting carried away that way. And, you know, when I look at a lot of golf courses, Phil, and I talk to them about this all the time, they have to fertilize so often because they're constantly cutting, but they let the leaf get a little longer. It doesn't decompose fast enough, so they throw extra nitrogen, and then that nitrogen runs into their ponds and that are their water hazards on the course, and then they're fighting algae and duckweed and all the other things. If it stays in the clipping and it naturally breaks down, you don't have the runoff into the water features. You know, so that's another thing. But you know, these are all the ancillary things that people are going to see in the next decade or two, changing the way the things look. There's so many things that are so apparent and in the light right now. You almost don't even have to get into that part of the conversation. So, you know, the other thing, and I've said this since I've been out here, it's amazing because it's like our companies are like running in parallel. You think we're in some alternate universe in the past, you know. So you guys, what's been really nice to see, and I think it shows why you guys are growing and we're growing, is you guys have a service component in all of your systems.
Essential.
Yeah. So you basically, I mean, if you've gotten to the point where people don't have the service component, you almost shy away from the sale at this point.
Well, in all honesty, I think the most important thing here is the fact that your clients aren't going to be robot specialists. They will learn about the robot and they'll get to grips with it and they'll understand what they need to do with it. But however, when it comes to handing down to other team members who take over from another team member, the most important thing you can do is a system needs to run, especially in a golf driving range. So if a client says to us, look, we want your system in, but we don't want your support contract, we would actually say, we can't install the system. And the simple reason for that is that you want a system delivered that's going to put clean balls in your ball dispenser, so you can sell those balls constantly without a break in that process. And we give all of our clients, we have a document that's called Managing Clients' Expectations, which is all about saying to the client, this is what you need to do to ensure that the system runs smoothly. We'll do all the rest, but as long as you comply with these, which are normal things like, for argument's sake, having enough balls in the system, really important part of it. Checking the robots, cleaning the robots on have it in one of your team's schedules. They need to go to the robots maybe once a day. Just make sure there's not a club head stuck in there or whatever. You get any problems, you give us a call. We offer 7-day-a-week telephone support, 48-hour on-site support, and we work on a repair or replace basis. Our engineers fundamentally can, basically speaking, build a robot from the spares they have in their van. But the most important thing is, from a client point of view, you're saving money with our system, and you've got a system that's running constantly with, very little downtime. That's the key to the whole process. And if you can get that delivered, why wouldn't you want to have support? So in fairness, you would only, if someone bought a robot mower and it was a private client and they insisted they didn't want support, we'd supply the robot without support. However, a driving range installation, to be honest with you, we wouldn't supply it. We'd say, no, look, you need the support. And if we couldn't persuade the client to have the support, we'd probably say no, because having a client that's got, it's easy to blame the robots. Let me give you an example, a little anecdotal thing for you. I had one client at driving range further up the country in the UK. And he phoned me up, he said, Phil, I'm not happy with this mower. I'm really not happy with it. I said, why not? Because it's not cutting the grass. I say, is it out there every day? He says, it's out there every day and it's running around, but the grass is just growing, just can't keep up. I said, have you checked the robot? Have you checked the blades and blah? Yeah, oh yeah, I do that every day. Yeah, my guy does this and my guy does it. So, oh, okay, so fine. Funny enough, I'm going past your place. I'll pop in to see you. So I popped in there and I touched base. I lifted up the robot and I said, okay, what do you see? He said, well, that looks all right to me. I said, I'll tell you what I see, shall I? I see 5 heads. Each head should have 3 blades on it. You've got one head with 1 blade on it. That's why your grass isn't being cut. I mean, common sense is lacking in a lot of cases. So we have to cover this sort of stuff in our handover document and our guidance to the client. However, we would have still sent a technician out to that site and told the client, if the client then called us back out again for the same situation, we'd charge the client. I mean, you've got to be fair at the end of the day. Common sense is very important, but unfortunately it's lacking a lot these days. And I don't know why it's lacking a lot, but it is.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast segment. but I do believe it's because, and I think I said this to you, I try not to call them robots. I try to call them automatic pickers, automatic ball washers, because people have seen the Terminator movie, and when he stands in the yard, he goes in the bathroom and fixes it. So I think when people hear robot, they instantly are like, this thing should change its blades. I mean, it is really kind of naive. But the other thing is, I think it's human nature. Most people are sympathetic enough to try to put themselves in the shoes of a human being.
Yeah.
Everyone cares about shitting on a robot. The robot sucks, this thing's terrible, get it out of here. So I think the service component is very important. And I always tell people, at the end of the day, AMS is a subcontractor that's offering a solution to cut and pick the driving range, right?
It's all about a solution. It's all about the solution.
AMS is the same thing. So at the end of the day, it is a better value for them to have specialized technicians dealing with that equipment, and then they can just not think about it. They go on in their day of doing what they're passionate about, which is golf, and we can do what we're passionate about, which is automation, right?
But do me a favor though, Joe. Don't say to your customers they don't have to think about it, because we want them to remember they've still got robots there, even though it does a whole heap for them. do remember they're there because they do need cleaning. They do need looking after. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but and you're right, and I should word that a little different, but I think you know my point. Like,
I know your point.
We don't need to send them to ITT and get them technical training. So,
Absolutely.
Okay, so, you've been doing it a while now. Can you start to feel, I mean, I can tell the listeners, as I've been here, this is the 9th day. Tomorrow I leave, actually. So, 9th day. I've been really inspired hearing how much the phones are ringing in this office. Obviously it's a busy office. I'll put it that way. There's multiple people in this office and everybody is busy. And that's inspiring to someone like myself in the United States, because some days it gets a little tiring. I feel like I'm calling people more than they're calling me sometimes, right? So, are you feeling what I'm seeing? I mean, I can tell just you're smiling and I'm asking the question. I mean, the future is bright for AMS. You guys seem to be growing rapidly.
We're expecting, to be fair with you, I mean, this has been 13 years and the growth. To start with, when I set this off 13 years ago, people were saying, forget it. Can't collect golf balls on the driving range. Don't be ridiculous. Cut grass 3 times a week. What, with that little machine? You having a laugh. However, the belief has slowly come, and the sales curve has gone like this, slowly but surely. And the belief, you've got to believe in your systems. And of course, technology is moving on at a rapid pace. And in recent years, especially with COVID, there's something about the robots. They don't take sick days. They don't take holidays. And during COVID, all of our customers who had robot mowers, their grass was cut and their grass was managed, because it was done automatically. And now you're seeing, not only is the sales curve going up here, the uptake by all customers, but I do believe 2023 is going to be the start of, in all honesty, I know it sounds a bit crazy, the revolution in large format robotic mowing. Absolutely. And the driving range is, from an adoption point of view, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it's just a no-brainer. Any new driving range that's opening today, if they don't put the system in, they've got to be off their tree. They've absolutely got to be off their tree. Why would you bother buying all this heavy equipment to run over grass when you can have, small little robots, a fully automated system? It's going to cost you less than having a member of staff out there doing it. It's going to be kinder to the ground. It's going to be carbon neutral, save you money. I wouldn't understand changing over. There's a decision to be made, but it's a way forward. And I would say to you, within a very short period of time, I would see the uptake for golf driving ranges to be, who can speculate? But it's the only way to do it.
So then, would it be fair to say at this point now, as the leader of AMS, you're probably more concerned with building a team than you are looking for different innovation, because the innovation in the technology is here.
This is team building. We need to get the message out there. I mean, you've got a whole heap more driving ranges over in the US than we have here, but we've got about 1,400 standalone driving ranges. Some are too small, but there's probably about 500 or 600 over here, of which we've already got we've probably got a decent percentage right now. So with our wash and return system, having AOS become our US distributor for our autonomous wash and ball management system is really exciting for me. And I'm looking to come and visit Joe. I'm looking to come and visit you, Joe, with your first installations. I see a bright future for us all, and the golf driving range business in its entirety, because it's going to save a lot of time and money and energy.
Well, there's a lot of cool stuff coming to that business. I mean, our technology, you've got Top Tracer, driving ranges themselves used to kind of just be the place where people went to warm up, and now it's the place where people are going to eat and drink, socialize and hang out.
They're entertainment centers now. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and to be fair with you, the robots give a bit of theater. You can't believe it. People stand there and watch the robots. And there's something I really want to develop, and that is some branding. If you work with let's say a golf driving range has sponsorship from a car company, let's say, well, wrap the robot as a Chevrolet or a Pontiac or whatever. You wrap it. Okay, it doesn't particularly look like one, but once you get the decals on there, the radiator stickers on there, they look great. Posters up. that can probably bring 10, 20 grand a year income for the driving range as well.
Yeah, well, I actually have said that Top Tracer should actually make the robots part of the games.
Why not? Absolutely. And I think that would be a jolly good idea.
I mean, especially when the kids go fish. I mean, make the thing the whale, as something, I don't know. But I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. And the reality, I always say when I go to shows, sometimes adults look at our equipment and they're like, oh, what's that? And every kid that can talk until they're about, let's say freshmen, let's just say high schoolers, they look and they're like, it's a robot mower, it's a robot picker. They instantly know because technology's been in their hands for so long now.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing I tell people. You said, it might be harder for people to convert or decision makers to change, but they have to think of the evolution of the game and the evolution of their customer, and their customer wants to see the technology. At the end of the day, the people that don't care about the tech, they're gonna cease to be customers one day. The younger people will be the customer, and that's who they should cater to.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I always like to take some time to not only talk about what people do, but their family. So before I get to that part, talk to me a little bit about the mats, Phil, because that's another thing I've seen. I thought it was an amazing thing. And, for myself, my story, I got into automation because of the landscaping and the snow removal and being sympathetic to landscaping professionals. But you similarly had something else going on that got you into automation. So talk a little bit more about the TrueStrike mats for people.
Well, TrueStrike, I designed TrueStrike over 20 years ago now, and I launched it in 2004 at the PGA show in Florida. And I designed it because a while ago, I used to have a digital print business, and I had some big clients, and I wasn't a particularly good golfer, but I was invited to a golf day. And so I spent a whole evening trying to drop the ball. My approach shot was always my Achilles heel. And I was dropping the ball on the pin every shot, hitting off a standard range mat. Went the next day to this game, first approach shot, duffed it. And I thought, oh my God, all that practice was for nothing. So I just put my mind to it and worked hard and came up and designed a product that gives you a sub base of around about 2 inches of gel, a special kind of gel. So when you hit into it, not only is it soft feel, but you get no shock or vibration, but you can actually compress the ball into the surface to get an accurate shot and the feel of hitting off a natural turf. And all the launch monitor companies, FlightScope, FlightScope, and all the guys out there who use this technology find that the results of hitting off TrueStrike are within 5% of a top quality natural turf. That being the case, it's called TrueStrike, by the way, and that being the case, professionals, golf enthusiasts, I don't say it goes in every golf range bay, because there's a lot of non-golfers out there who hit off a TrueStrike and they'll duff the shot, and the heel will bury, the face will close, and they'll get an affected shot. But if they want to develop their game, it's the perfect surface to do so. So we sell it around the world via distribution. We've got a great distributor in America called ProPutt Systems, and they sell it across. They hold stock in North Carolina. I love it, and it works itself now. It just people just order containers off me and they sell them. They can buy it anywhere. So yeah, it's all good. It's a great surface. I've got one in my golf simulator room, as you'd expect.
Well, and podcasts are about storytelling, so I got a little story I got to tell. So last night, Phil invited me to play golf on a simulator, and it was the first time I've ever hit off a TrueStrike. And I was talking to Gretchen when I got back to the hotel last night, and I couldn't stop talking about that experience. Now, first of all, I was embarrassed. I somehow broke one of Phil's drivers on my backswing.
It was an old one. Don't worry about it.
And Phil, people that have golfed with me would understand. People that haven't wouldn't. But I do have I have a very violent swing, right? But anyhow, but what I found out was I hit the ball really well with the 4 and 5 iron, and Phil and I realized I should just be using 5 irons all day. But I don't think I would have had that success if I wasn't hitting off that TrueStrike mat, because I could actually hit the ball the way that I would have hit it if I was hitting grass. I could aim just I didn't have to think about it bouncing off the mat. I could actually swing through it and the mat absorbed it. So I thought it was actually fantastic. It was a superb feel and mat. So, it was a great time. I learned that I could, what was I hitting? 215 yards with a 4 or 5 iron off his TrueStrike mat. So it was awesome. It was just like real. So Phil, tell us about your family a little bit, in your background. I mean, we all started, especially entrepreneurs, right? We're very driven people. I believe we're 1% of the population, and there's got to be something that makes us tick, So, tell me about your parents. How many kids were in your family? Kind of just.
Oh God, I'm really old now, needless to say, Joe. So it's a long time ago. So I don't know that I can remember that far back. But there you go. I got a couple of sisters.
Tell me what you can remember, or tell me what you want to remember.
Well, I sadly lost my father when I was 5 years old. But my mother did a good job with me and my sister, and brought us to. We got we were fortunate to go to a good school, etc. Which brings a bit more of an entrepreneurial spirit out with sometimes, and that happened with me at the end of the day. And no, I've just worked for myself since I was 24 years old. I worked for a company, and the guy had promised me, you work hard, Phil, let's get this thing going, and I'll give you part of the business, and blah blah blah. Anyway, it came to it. We got this business going really well. And he turned around to me and he said, Phil, we sold the business. And I said, great. What's my share of that? He said, what do you mean your share of that? I said, well, I got shares in a business, right? No. And I said, well, what do I get out of it? He goes, nothing. I said, why would I give you part of what I've got? It's like, hold on a minute, you couldn't have got there without me. So anyway, long and short of it, I said, well, screw you, buddy. I'm out of here. I'm only going to be bitten once, and then that's how I got on my own, and I've been on my own ever since. And I truly think I'm unemployable now, so I better make my current businesses work.
No, I actually tell people all the time I'm unemployable. I don't think I could ever work for someone. I think I make a horrible employee, but I'm a great leader. So, but I don't know that I could lead something if it wasn't my vision.
Horses for courses, my friend. Horses for courses.
Yeah. So how about, I've got family in the business, in my businesses. You have family in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. My nephew is my technical director, and I brought him on board because he was a young, enthusiastic guy. He's mid-30s now. He's been with me 10 years, and he just got his 10-year award, which was a nice Breitling watch that I've treated him to, and said thanks for being part of this team. And he loves what he's doing. He's got shares in the business too. He's got share options in the business. My daughter too, she runs our marketing team. And as you know, Joe, you've been chatting to her quite a bit in regards to how we can do some of this social media stuff and podcasting and things, which for an old man like me is, a bit beyond my remit, to be fair with you, but I'll let you guys get on with it because you're better at it than me. And I've got a great team around me. I've got a team of about 15 staff members. It's not a massive company. We're an SME, but I do envisage it in the next 5 years, we're going to grow pretty rapidly, and hopefully enable me to retire at some stage in the next 10 years with a bit of luck, and have a bit more of a slower life. Come visit Joe in America.
Hey, that'd be great. Talk about all the systems we're selling. That'd be a good time. I'll take you to Florida, and I'll take you up to my place up in Wisconsin. So Phil, that kind of gets to the point. When you're talking about retirement, I'll just get right into it then. So, what do you, when you're retired, what would be a fun day for Phil if you're not working? What do you like to do for fun?
Well, to be fair, in all honesty, I don't think I'm ever going to stop working. I'd love to mentor small businesses. I'd love younger guys and girls, 25, 26 who want to set their own businesses up. Come and talk to me, and we can give them some advice, and may even be able to support them, invest in their businesses. Maybe I don't know yet, but I'd want to do it for them. I wouldn't want to do it for financial reward for me. I just want to share some of my experiences if that was possible. I'm no megalomaniac, and if I was able to be involved in a small business and that business was super successful because I put the help in, I put trust and faith in them, that would be reward enough for me, to be fair with you.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And you and I've said before, we're very similar people, and I'm inspired that you want to do that, because you and I were the same with that. It's one of the reasons I have this podcast. And quite frankly, Phil, you're doing what you want to do retired anyways, because there's going to be a lot of people that listen to this, and you're going to inspire them.
Good, I hope so.
And you said you're older and you're not good at this podcast stuff, but you're doing great. I mean, you're
I'm just talking, Joe. My whole life has been talking, so that's all I'm doing. I'm just talking.
That's all a podcast is. It's two people talking, So then, at the end of the day, when all the dust settles, if you sell the company and you get your way and you're retired, do what you want, what do you want to be most remembered for then in the industry? And then, at the end of the day, your legacy,
Being a kind and decent person, mate. That's all I'd like to do. Kind and decent person. If that's how people remember me, then, yeah. I mean, I very just say to you, I very sadly lost my wife in 2019. Very sadly lost my dear wife to breast cancer, and she was the kindest soul in the world. She changed my life when I lost her, on the basis that I realized she was always kind, but kindness is the way forward. I've got enough money. I've got food on the table. I feed, anybody around me, my children, and I have friends come around. Kindness, that's it. And, I hate to see greed. I hate to see anger, so yeah, there you go, Joe. That's my legacy. That's what I'd like to leave behind. People thinking that he was a decent bloke. That's all.
Well, I'm going to tell people. I've had the chance to meet you. I've had the chance to hang out with you. I kind of skimmed past the part of the family, because I didn't know if you were going to want to talk about what happened with your wife, because Phil is a very passionate person like myself, and he's a pretty tender guy. I saw him shed a little bit of a tear when we were at the cathedral looking at the fallen soldiers thing. So I'm glad you chose to share what happened to your wife, because I know she was a huge part of your life, and I know I could tell just by being here you miss her. But you are a very kind person. You've made for a fantastic trip for me out here.
Joe. Well, you're welcome, Joe.
I don't know that I would have liked my trip to England if I spent it with anyone else other than you. So,
well, it's very kind of you to say so, Joe. Very kind of you to say.
So,
I'm humbled, my friend. I'm humbled.
Yeah. So, anyways, Phil and I are going to be doing a lot together, and you'll be seeing us around and seeing our systems go in, and maybe we'll make this a yearly update. Phil, we'll check in on each other and see what we're doing. But
I have no doubt we'll see each other at least once a year. I've got no doubt about that.
Yeah. So with that, I think this is going to make for a fantastic podcast. There's a lot of people that are going to love the content that you shared with us today, and I thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.